Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our regular meeting of council this November 4th, 2024. Just before getting into business, if you are going to celebrate Remembrance Day upcoming, we have 4 venues for you, 11 to 12 in Williamstown, 2 to 3 in Lancaster. You can go to the high school at 10:30, maybe that's slightly closed, but Martintown at 2 to 3 on November 11th, those second two. So please get out, show your respect. Call to order. Moved by Deputy Mayor Lang, seconded by Councillor McDonnell. Be it resolved that the November 4th, 2024 council meeting of the Township of South Glengarry now be opened at 7:01 p.m. All those in favor? Carried. If you could please rise for the singing of our national anthem. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, we'll move to the approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we have one item that's been requested to be pulled from the consent agenda for discussion, that being item 10D, the letter regarding the Ontario Deposit Return Program.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Jaworski, seconded by Councillor Bougie. Be it resolved that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry approve the agenda as amended. All those in favor? Carried. Approval of the minutes. Were there any errors or omissions noted? Moved by Deputy Mayor Lang, seconded by Councillor Jaworski. Be it resolved that the minutes of the following meetings be adopted as circulated. Previous meeting minutes, October 21st, 2024. All those in favor? Carried. We will get into presentations and delegations. First up is Maxville Manor Redevelopment Committee, Amy Porteous and Allison McDonald. If you could please come up to the blue, not the lectern, but the blue table, and just press the gray button. It will turn on red whenever it's live. And just, you might have to speak a little into it for our online audience.
Just let me know if you can hear okay. So my name is Amy Porteous. I'm CEO at Maxville Manor. We're very pleased to be here. Thank you for the opportunity to talk to you about our redevelopment project. I'm joined by Allison McDonald, who is a board member at Maxville Manor, but also a councillor at North Stormont. And we do have some other individuals that are here as part of our delegation. So, I'll tell you a little bit about Maxville Manor before we get into the redevelopment project. We opened in 1968, so we're actually just on November 1st. We celebrated our 56th year in operation. We have approximately 180 staff and the same amount of volunteers that help us to run Maxville Manor. And we're one of the largest employers in the Maxville area outside of McEwen's, and we're home to 122 residents. So we offer a continuum of care, which includes long-term care, seniors housing, and a variety of community support services to keep people living in their homes as long as possible. So things like Meals on Wheels, transportation, day programs, you name it, we provide it to seniors living in the area. Together, we serve approximately 500 people each year. So it's hard to see on the map, but this is the area that is covered, that we don't just serve people in the Maxville area, we serve people all across the eastern counties. So from as far as Cornwall, Prescott Russell, and even Ottawa. So on the next slide, you'll see just the breakdown of where our residents and staff are from. So in Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry, 64% of our residents are from that area and 76% of our staff. And you can see some of the other numbers, but obviously that is the most relevant one on this slide. So a high proportion of people that care for others and those that are living are from the area. In eastern counties, we have 18 long-term care homes. 13 are for-profit, 2 are municipal homes, and 3 are not-for-profits. And so Maxville Manor is one of 3 not-for-profits, and we do know that 68% of people will choose a not-for-profit or a municipal home as their first choice for long-term care. So we have a high proportion of for-profit, where the largest demand is really for not-for-profit and municipal homes. So our slogan is for our campaign is we build, we grow, we care. And so we do have a history of building at the manor. So we started in 1968 with 91 residents. In the early 90s, we opened up some apartments. In 1994, we expanded the home to 122 residents. We then converted a medical building into 4 apartments for seniors. And now we're looking to extend our construction funding subsidy through the Ministry of Long-Term Care. We grow, so there are over 40,000 people right now on the wait list for long-term care across Ontario. And at Maxville Manor, specifically, we have over 100 people at any point in time that are waiting for a place within our home. And we do have a mix between beds that were originally created in 1968 and then redeveloped in 1994. So they're known as A beds and C beds. So we have 46 C beds which were built to a standard of 1972. And by June 2025, we need to meet the new provincial standards for beds in Ontario. And so we need to upgrade those C beds to the new bed designation. So that was really one of the impetus for the project. It is a $68 million project, and we are looking to raise $11 million in community funds to support the redevelopment. So I'm just going to show you what our current facility looks like, and then I'll show you what our redeveloped facility is going to look like, and that's the exciting part. So we have, currently we have 3 neighborhoods, 6 wings, and you can see a difference in color between yellow and green. So the green beds are the beds that are the newer beds, the A beds, and the beds that are in yellow are the C beds. So those are the 46 that need to be redeveloped, and you can see they're primarily in these 3 wings. This is the current entrance to the manor, which faces Mechanic Street, if you know where Maxville Manor is. So this is the redeveloped manor. So you can see it's quite different. We plan to have shovels in the ground in spring 2025. And the project is a 40-month project. It's over 4 different phases. And so, interestingly enough, the front of the manor is going to be at the back now, and the back of the manor will be the front. So we're flipping the whole building 180 degrees, we will, did you want me to go through the phases just really quickly? Okay, So our first phase, we will be redeveloping our kitchen because we're adding 38 beds to the project. We need to expand our kitchen facilities, and we will begin with a new parking lot, entrance, and kitchen. In phase two, we will have a new two-story building that is built. So currently the manor is all on one story, and we're moving to two-story, 64-bed neighborhoods. And we'll do the same thing in phase three, which will require us to demolish 2 out of the 3 neighborhoods that currently exist at the manor, but those are primarily made up of those C beds that I was talking to you about. The last phase is we're actually keeping this particular wing, and we will be upgrading those units so that they meet the current standards. So, so it's really exciting. It's an exciting time for the manor. We are looking at expanding by the 38 beds and upgrading the 122 that we have right now for a total of 160. So this is just a few other visuals that give you some renderings of what our future space is going to look like. So the first image on the top left is a dining room for 32 residents. The picture on the top right is the courtyard, and then the picture on the bottom right is the new entrance.
So community support is absolutely critical for this project to move forward, and for that reason, we've been out in the community, both visiting municipalities, visiting businesses, farmers, residents, and of course the board as well, making commitments to support this project because we truly believe that Maxwell Manor is a pillar of our community, whether it be South Glengarry, whether it be North Stormont. We do have a plan, so we have a fully qualified building committee, very excellent individuals working on that committee, ready to go, and we have a lot of confidence and faith in their ability to get the project done. We have the designs ready, as Amy showed, a couple different designs, and we're very excited about the way it looks and the phasing. The phasing also means that each senior would only have to move once, each resident would only move once, so a lot of thought has gone into how to execute this plan. And Amy has worked hard to secure this base provincial funding that we really needed to start this project, but now we are looking for financial support in the community specifically. Can you scroll, or do you want me to scroll? Thanks. So just to go over the financial strategy that we've put together, we do have about 18 million in long-term provincial construction funding, and that sort of unlocks over time. But the way this works for a nonprofit home is that we do need actual money fundraised in the community to support construction costs up front. So we have secured $4 million from SDNG County, and thank you to those of you sitting on County Council who have supported us in that way. We've also secured a $40 million loan, but we are here as part of our $11 million fundraising campaign. Thank you. If we are unable to proceed with this project, essentially the entire services provided by the manor are at risk. The 120 long-term care beds, 180 jobs, and a huge contributor to all of our local economies. We do feel that through our community outreach services, we're reaching 350 plus seniors and adults with needs every year. And I am happy to announce as well that in North Stormont, we have decided through council resolution to support this project. We have committed, in what worked for us, was a commitment of $20,000 a year for 5 years for a total of $100,000. So that was approved at council at our last meeting. So to finalize our ask, essentially we understand that every council has different financial commitments. We're coming to you during the time of your budget deliberations, and we know those pressures are intense, whether it be OPP, roads, and other things. But we are open to working with you on whatever type of gift might work. We are looking at different options that are available, and we have great qualified people who can provide advice on how it might best fit within your budget. I'm happy to share what North Stormont has committed, and that's what worked for us. It was a similar commitment that we chose to make to Dundas Manor as well, because we know a lot of our residents use that facility. And we have felt very good about that commitment we made to Dundas, and we feel good about the commitment we've made to Maxwell as well. So With that, I think we're happy to take any questions.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Are there, we'll go to Councillor Bougie.
Thank you, through Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the presentation. I was just curious as to when you talked about the C beds to upgrade them to A beds, what was the provincial government's take? Like, were they able to are they fully going to fund that upgrade for that portion? Or is there a shortfall that you guys have to raise on that part as well, on top of your upgrade?
So that's a great question. Ministry funding is always super easy to understand. It's not complicated at all. The interesting part about how long-term care is funded is that for capital is that the organization has to put up front all of the funding, and then you get paid back over a period of 25 years from the government. So the organization assumes all the risk, and that's why we had to secure a $40 million loan for the project. And the government will fund us over time, but it doesn't cover all of the expenses. Not to mention, it doesn't ensure that we're providing the same level of care and quality that we're currently providing. So that's why we have to subsidize some of the ministry funding through the community support.
All right, Councillor Jaworski.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor McDonald. Thank you very much for coming and presenting this information. I certainly found it very interesting, and I'm sure folks who are listening online also really appreciate this level of information. I have a question with respect to the parts of the building that you said will have to be demolished to be able to be replaced. And I was curious if you could speak a little bit more in detail on that decision. Was there like certain constraints of the existing building that just didn't permit that upgrade to that newer standard? So I was just wondering if you could go into detail on that.
Yeah, thanks for that question. That's a great question. The Maxwell Manor property has a number of constraints associated with it. So on the east side of the property, there is a creek. And on the south side of the property, there is a railroad. And so it's made for a very interesting process to figure out where the best place to build on the property would be. And when we evaluated all of the different building options, it made the most sense to, instead of renovating what we had, the renovations far exceeded in terms of cost what it would cost to build new. So that was the reason for the decision. So we had to take into account the space that we had, the soil feasibility to be able to build on, and whether or not it made sense to renovate. Now, we did decide to keep our neighborhood called the FG Wing, and those are newer beds, and they required less renovations, so we were able to maintain that. Otherwise, it would have been a complete start over. So we are keeping the core of the home along with one neighborhood. You're welcome.
Deputy Mayor Lang, or should I say Warden-elect?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. Thanks for the presentation, and I'm sure we all know people who have been in the Maxwell Manor who are there now, actually, and so I'm looking forward to figuring out something. I don't know exactly what we'll come up with, but myself, I'm interested in supporting you.
Great. Thank you so much.
We'll go Councillor McDonnell and back to Councillor Bougie.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no questions either. Just thank you for the work you're doing and for taking the time to come and speak with us, and look forward to finding something to see what we can do to help. So thank you.
Through Mr. Ed, did you guys have a deadline that you're going to aim for here? Because I know you have the phase 1, 2024-25, so we're talking very soon. So
Yes.
is there a deadline to wrap this up?
So it is a 40-month project in terms of build, so 3.5 years. Because it is a phased project, it does take a little bit longer than a greenfield project. So we will be starting construction in spring 2025, and we will have the whole project completed by end of 2028.
And in terms of financial commitments, we are hoping by the end of the year to secure a reasonable amount of commitments in the community. They don't all have to be delivered by end of year, but committed. Oh, sorry. I should know this from my own counsel. We are looking to secure commitments by the end of this year in terms of a financial commitment. We don't need to necessarily recognize the dollars in 2024. But we are looking to have that commitment. And of course, as members of the board, we're watching this closely to decide on construction dates and things like that as we see the commitment from the community. So is that accurate, Amy?
That's accurate.
Okay.
Just to add to that, because we are securing a $40 million loan for the project, the more equity that we can show up front to the lenders, the more successful that we can be in trying to secure that loan. So that's why we're trying to get gift commitments, either one time or gift commitments over time.
All right, and just to go through our process, we will push it to staff to come back because we'd have to look at what amounts of money and how we could get that money, and then we will discuss it formally for the decision. So I should have mentioned that no decision will be taken this evening, but it should come back in decent order. I imagine that's a finance conversation mostly. So Ms. McDonald, prepare yourself for that one, and look forward to the upcoming one, likely in the next 1 or 2 meetings, because we have one in November and one more in December. So hopefully we can get that to you then. If not, I guess we can communicate that when a date is if it's after that. And thank you very much for your time and your contribution to our community. And I'm sorry for saying your name wrong. You said Portas, and I said Porteous earlier, so I apologize
That's
for that.
okay. I answer to all.
As a McDonald, I should know better. But thank you very much for your presentation this evening.
Okay. Thank you
you.
so much.
All right, so our next order of business would be 6B, South Glengarry Landfill's financial liabilities. WSP will be presenting. Ms. McDonald, if you'd like to introduce.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I most certainly would. Council will remember that through our 2024 budget, we had included under our waste management section of the budget to undertake a study to determine our financial liability for our 2 open landfills. So this presentation is providing the results of that study. We are pleased to have Yannick Mercereau and Serena Chung from WSP joining us tonight. WSP has a long history with our landfills, so we are very confident in the information being provided, and we are, I personally can't speak to understanding everything in this presentation, but between our treasurer and myself, we are very pleased and interested with these numbers, and we hope that it provides council with the information that you've been missing in the past few years. Every time we talk about landfills, we've been asked what is the liability, what are our closing costs, so this will help provide some light on those questions and aid us in our future decisions. So thank you.
All right, welcome and please proceed.
Hi, thank you very much, Council, for having us. Sorry about that. Thank you very much for having us tonight. So my name is Yannick Mercereau from WSP. I've got 13 years in this company. I'm senior environmental engineer specialized in waste management projects and in particular financial liability estimates for our municipal clients. And Serena is our junior environmental consultant, and she's been with WSP for 1.5 years and assisted me and the rest of the team in preparing those deliverables. So I want to start with maybe defining what the landfill liability is. So the township has 3 landfills. One is close to our operating, and the liability associated with a landfill is linked to the closure aspects and post-closure care of those landfills after they close post-closure. So a good chunk of those liabilities are associated with closure works that you're probably familiar with, big CapEx projects. and there's also maintaining the site after the closure for a number of years. And for calculating landfill liability, we also take into account some parameters such as inflation and discounting rates, which are material to the estimates that we presented to you. So those are to be taken into consideration, and we can always discuss them because we are in a high inflation environment, or we just we just finished a high inflation environment, and therefore it's got a very material impact on those evaluations. Maybe some legal framework to explain how we got to those computation. And I want to start with privately owned landfill because privately owned landfills are required under Ontario Regulation 232/98 for those landfills subject to this regulation to provide to the Ministry of Environment a financial assurance to provide a certain amount of money to the ministry in the forms of cash, letter of credit or bond to cover closure costs and post-closure care costs. Those privately owned landfills, as the name says, privately owned, could have their owner go bankrupt, and therefore the ministry wants to have amounts in place to cover for those costs if there's such a thing as bankruptcy for those owners. For municipal and Crown-owned landfills, however, there's no requirement. However, we adopt the privately owned landfill framework to calculate the liabilities for municipalities. And Ministry of Environment has a guideline dedicated to that, and we use it as framework. We don't have to adhere to it, but it is a good state-of-the-art to follow. Maybe I should mention that municipalities are required, however, under the Public Sector Accounting Board requirement to report in their books the liability associated with their landfills using the standard that was adopted on April 1st, 2022, titled PS 3280, titled Asset Retirement Obligations. And a landfill, an operating landfill, is an asset that will have to be retired in the future. So we do our best to project when those future expenses will happen, and also how to account for it in the books at the current status of the landfill site capacity. So next slide. So we wanted to show you some examples. You're probably familiar with some of them. So a big one, like I said, big capex for a municipality would be final cover construction for landfill. But for closure activities, we also have the preparation of a closure plan that is typically submitted to the ministry a few years in advance of closure. And once it is adopted by the Ministry of Environment, there's also some site cleanup, some slope grading to make sure it follows what we presented in the closure plan. And then after that, final cover construction, and maybe we could also add some new monitoring wells if required. For post-closure care, it is predominantly associated to continuous environmental monitoring of those sites for a number of years. And there's also regular site inspection, but also cap inspection. So if there's a washout for the final cover, you would have to patch it. And also you want to make sure that your network of monitoring wells is in good working conditions so you can continue monitoring it for the dozens of years after closure. And I wanted to mention that in this exercise, we adopted an assumption that the sites would have to be monitored for 25 years after closure, for a minimum of 25 years. This is the minimum requirement for private sites, and what actually dictates how long you're going to have to care for your landfills after closure is really the MECP, the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Park, deciding that the site is no longer a threat to the environment of the public, and therefore you can discontinue monitoring, and you can change the land use, etc. our experience is that it is difficult to reach that point, but it is also quite often that we see requirements after closure decreasing. So you may have a change in frequency for the monitoring or reporting. You may have some wells that you can abandon. So there's typically your liability decreases after closure, but it is difficult to know exactly when you can reach that state. We have also some modeling ways to determine this, but in reality, it is based on the results of your monitoring program and to make sure your site continue to be environmentally sound and in compliance with regulations. So Serena will be presenting quickly the output that we got for these two sites.
Okay, so I will be presenting the financial liability estimates for the two landfills that are currently in South Glengarry. So we will first start off with Beaverbrook Road Waste Disposal Site. So Beaverbrook Road Waste Disposal Site is currently operating. It is currently operating with a remaining capacity of approximately 102,000 cubic meters. This was estimated at the end of 2022, which was the most recent topographical survey that was taken. So based on this, the remaining capacity, the site is estimated to have approximately 18.8 years remaining from the end of 2022. So this means that the closure year of the site is estimated to be approximately in 2041. So once at closure, we estimated that the closure costs are estimated to be just under about $1 million in 2024 dollars. And after closure, the annual post-closure costs are estimated to be just about $40,000 in 2024 dollars. So it should be noted that these post-closure care period is recommended to be at least 25 years, as what Yannick had mentioned. So this is like the recommendation for the private landfills, which we adopted for this activity. Which brings us to our last line on this slide. So for the 2024 to 2025 fiscal year, the landfill liability is estimated to be just above $4 million in 2024 dollars. So next we will be looking at North Lancaster Waste Disposal Site. So North Lancaster Waste Disposal Site is also currently operating. It is operating with a remaining capacity of about 32,734 cubic meters. This was estimated at the end of 2023, which was also about the time when our most recent topographical survey was taken. So based on this, the closure year is estimated to be approximately 7.8 years from the end of 2023. So based on that, we estimate that the closure year will be 2031. So this means that the closure costs at the time are estimated to be approximately $850,000 in 2024 dollars. So after closure, we estimate that the annual post-closure care costs, we estimate them to be just under $45,000 in 2024 dollars for the same 25-year period. Which brings us to our last line of the slide, which is also for the 2024 to 2025 fiscal year, the landfill liability costs are estimated to be just above $3 million in 2024 dollars.
Maybe I just wanted to point out that for the closure costs, they were estimated for the whole approved waste footprint for both sites. If you progressively close your site, this liability will decrease. So it is important to note, if you have a portion of the site that has received construction of final cover, this will be deducted from the, in one case, a bit less than $1 million, and the other one, $850,000. So it makes a substantial difference in the amount. But under PS 3280, we have to account for the liability associated for the whole construction of the final cover. So that's why it is a substantial amount. It doesn't mean it will happen all at once at closure. And as far as I know, the ministry's preference is to progressively close the site. So this CapEx is actually, in reality, tends to be spread over the course of the operating period.
Thank
you
you
have
very
any
much.
questions.
Are there any questions from around council? All right, if I may, okay. Deputy Mayor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. So like if I go to Beaverbrook, the $4 million, $4,058,000, that includes the $40,000 for those 25 years. I'm just trying to I think it's kind of prudent that we have money set aside to do the closure, but I don't know that we would need to have money set aside to spend the $40,000 a year. I think that's something that could be worked into an operating budget, for a township this size, so that it doesn't necessarily have to be sitting there, not being used. But the $968,000, maybe is something that should be there, should be ready to go.
Yeah, in those estimates, you have a mix of CapEx and OpEx. That is true. And we have to tally up all these annual expenses that are actually currently occurring. So environmental monitoring is annual. Fence maintenance, well replacement is as needed, typically. But for this exercise, we have to make some reasonable assumptions, and then we have to account for those expenses to happen over the course of a 25-year period. And that's how we come up with this amount. But that is true. There is a big CapEx at closure, and then lower annual OpEx over the course of the 25-year post-closure period.
Can I just get clarification for my own? So the 2024-2025 landfill liability of $4 million, can you just define landfill liability just so that we can be, so I can be clear, I guess? Because it's not a,
No,
when I
that-
look at estimated closure costs, I kind of agree that we can have that money prepared slowly over time, and then the annual cost just becomes operating. But the $4 million, is that an actual value, or is that, what is, when you say liability, just to make sure that we're speaking the same? So it would be page, I think, 6 of your slide or page 29 of our agenda. I don't know if you, oh, you're, okay. Oh.
So just to clarify, the $4 million includes, so the way we do it, we estimate in today's dollars those closure costs, post-closure care costs, then we project them into the future with the inflation rate. So for closure, it stops at the closure year. For post-closure care costs, it starts at closure year and then goes on for 24 years after that. Then those are expressed in current dollars into the future. Then we discount them back with a lower rate because that's the current environment we're in. Lower discount rate than inflation rate. And we discount them back to closure year dollar to put them into the same dollar value. And then we sum them up, and then we discount it again to 2024 dollars. So the $4 million includes all post-closure and post-closure care costs for the 25-year period, discounted back in 2024 dollars.
Okay, thank you. So for budgeting purposes, it really is it's a nice number to know, but it's kind of an accounting thing. And if I may, because I would like to address just some recent headlines we've had about post-closure or landfill liability costs having a $2 million deficit on our PSAB numbers, because that did come out. in the articles, it was very clear, but I want our community to know that the information changed as we got new information, so we updated our numbers in PSAB, purely accounting. So naturally, we did not have a $2 million deficit out of the middle of nowhere. I just wanted to clarify that for the listening audience. And it's good governance when you get better information to prepare your books and budgets that way. But I do appreciate Deputy Mayor Lang mentioning that we need near 968,000, and with I think Blue Box coming around, like maybe there's some consideration because we'll have some cost savings there, although that will come up during budget. Are there any further comments? And then sorry for a little ramble. I almost said Stephanie.
That's fine. It is
Councillor
my name.
Jaworski.
Thank you, through you, Mayor McDonald. Thank you very much for the presentation. This is very important information that we've been, as Ms. McDonald explained, that we've been needing or wanting for some time now. So it's great to have it. On the financial, on this liability piece, I was wondering if you have maybe like as a follow-up, you could provide maybe like a table where you're doing this financial calculation, because I do find it's not the most straightforward, and for like members of the public or those of us today who our minds aren't as sharp as they are sometimes, find it difficult to follow. So I think it'd be helpful like in a table form.
We added some slides to maybe walk you through that, and maybe you should have shown that to councillors before. So this is the detail.
Don't apologize for that. There's a high-level council detail, but it's nice to have this in information. We can probably ask for this, but if you want to explain a little bit, since you have it.
Absolutely. So here you can see that you have the closure and post-closure costs expressed in 2024 dollars, then we inflate all of them until they happen, and then in shaded cells, that's when they are expected to happen, and then we sum them up to the second last column in current year dollars, and we discount them to closure year dollars in the last column here. So, and then when we sum them up, that's how we come up with, in the case of Beaverbrook, with a total of $5.9 million at closure year 2041, right? Can you go to the next slide? And here, so once we have the total amount of liability expected at closure year, we discount it back to current year dollars. So here we split between the closure liability, the post-closure liability. The accretion is essentially the interest you would earn on that amount of liability if you were to put it in a reserve fund at a Government of Canada bond yield of 2.2%, 2.25 in this case. And that's how we tally up to the $4 million that you see for the line on for 2024. So it is, yeah. In our final deliverable, we also include the amortization of those liabilities. If your site is 86% full, you amortize only that portion. So we have a schedule of amortization for you in detail in those deliverables. And it is different from a reserve fund that you may have or may want to build. It is an accounting, it is to be reflected in the books. Also, I just wanted to mention that it may not have been accounted the same way under the previous standard, PS 3270. So you may not be the only municipality seeing a jump. And as far as I know, PS 3280 forces municipality to recognize the full liability all at once. So that's why there's a jump. But it is not expected to happen until, in the case of Beaverbrook, 2041. In the case of North Lancaster, until 2031. At the moment, we may receive more information when we receive the annual survey results, but this is what we have at the moment.
Thank you very much for showing that. So, and I don't know, maybe this isn't like the area that you normally would weigh in on, but like in terms of like budget planning, like I'm assuming that, you know, if municipalities are putting money aside in a reserve, it's very specific to like the closure costs versus the long-term monitoring costs. At the monitoring costs, we would be dealing with those sort of like as a standard operational item, whereas it's really that, was it $2.5 million, I think, dollar in the point of Beaverbrook, that's the one that we should start building up over time. Is that fair?
So North Lancaster would close earlier, though. So, Also, you have to account, maybe some municipalities decide to progressively close their sites, and therefore these capex are really spread out across the whole operational period. It may not be possible for all sites. It depends on geometry of the site as well. You cannot maybe reach the whole capacity of your site for a certain number of years, and then all these capex are really constrained over the last 4 or 5 years of life for your site. So this has to be taken into consideration. Just wanted to mention as well that those closure costs, at least for North Lancaster, if I recall correctly, 75% of those costs are associated to providing and importing soil material, so the general soil plus topsoil, and importing them to the site, placing them, grading them, compacting them. So there are also some cost savings that could be considered if you were able to receive some soils from other activities, some contaminated soils, that if you are allowed to use them as final cover, or excess soil. So there are maybe other possibilities to consider. And if landfill owners are able to plan for that, they can substantially decrease their actual closure cost. At the moment, the entire footprint for both sites was considered for this assessment. If a portion of it have received already some portion of the final cover, it would have to be deducted from the amount. And then progressively, it is recommended to regularly update your financial liability estimate. It could go every 3 to 5 years for a full reassessment. And our unit costs are also based on local contractors' quotes and our experience at similar landfills. Again, experience change, costs also change depending on the time you get them. So during COVID, it would have been probably a bit more substantial, et cetera. So it is important to update those costs as you get them. And also, if you have big CapEx projects, it could be helpful to reflect them in these kind of estimates. General earthworks is relatively easy to update in those estimates. Hope it makes sense.
Thanks again, through you, Mayor McDonald. Thank you for that. So again, from what you're saying there, it sounds like these are, I don't want to say worst case, but maybe kind of worst case in the sense that, you've highlighted 2 ways potentially of reducing, either by getting fill from other operations within the township, or by closing the landfill in more of a staged process. Are there other items that could help, or are there other items that we should be very aware of that could hurt in terms of these liabilities?
So for post-closure care costs, a substantial amount is associated with monitoring and reporting. So we are in charge at the moment of monitoring and reporting those sites. I just wanted to mention, this is really dictated by the Ministry of Environment. Our jobs as consultants is to evaluate how those monitoring programs can be adjusted up or down. And if a site is in environmental compliance, and if we see possibilities to reduce either the frequency of monitoring, the scope of the monitoring, we generally do so and present that to the ministry, try to get their concurrence, then it gets reflected in the environmental compliance approvals, then it's in effect, and then you can really have substantial savings for sites. Especially after closure of a site, those sites are natural attenuation sites, so we do not pump the leachate generated by those sites. It relies on the groundwater table and the land that you own, the buffer land that you own, or groundwater rights that you acquired around those sites to contain those contaminants. So in order to comply at the property boundary with groundwater guidelines for drinking water. If those sites are in compliance when they are closed, there is a good rationale, and if we see that the leachate plume is relatively steady, if the hydrogeological and hydrological settings are appropriate, we can provide in our closure plan a substantially reduced scope for monitoring and reporting, and that's when it really happened. But in reality, what will dictate is really the environmental performance of your site. And it can change really dramatically between a site and another. But we also always try to find ways to optimize those monitoring programs. When it comes to final cover, it is dictated by your design and operations plan. It is an approved design, and we have to abide by that. Like I said, if you find source suitable for final cover, it is a substantial saving for landfill owners. Also, if you have equipment within the municipality and operators that are able to construct such final covers, it could also help reducing earthworks costs under supervision of engineers, or at least some kind of documentation that has been completed as per the plan.
Right, with no other questions of council, thanks for having the background ready for us. That's always pleasurable when we can see the background, and thank you for your time and this document. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right, we will then move into action requests. 7A, Solid Waste Management, 2025 Levels of Service. Ms. McDonald, moved by Councillor Bougie, seconded by Councillor Jaworski. Be it resolved that Staff Report 2024-121 be received, and that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of South Glengarry approve the 2025 service levels for solid waste management services as outlined in Appendix 1 of Staff Report 2024-124, including the following service level for curbside bulky item pickup. And we have three options for this one. We have option 1, single week contracted with increased communications. Option 2, scheduled service at a near cost recovery basis. Or option 3, no curbside option. Ms. McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And since this is related also to landfill and solid waste, I would just like to note that when we talk about post-closure costs, the Summerstand landfill stopped receiving waste in 1987, and we continue to monitor it today. And depending on the year and where we are in our monitoring program, that cost is between $5,000 and $12,000 a year. So when our estimates are built on 24 years, I mean, 1987 was longer than 24 years ago. So we are in it until the MECP or whatever they're called in the future lets us out. So just as it's a very real liability and cost that we carry until we're told we don't need to anymore. But to the report at hand, we are looking at our solid waste management levels of service for 2025. Council discussed this in early September and requested that we come back with a few options for the bulky waste pickup. Changes from 2024 that Council had agreed on in principle, but perhaps may change their minds this evening, is maintaining a household hazardous waste event for 2025. Administration had proposed perhaps moving towards a depot model, but we've carried the event in our 2025 draft budget that has yet to be seen. And then increasing the price for individual bag tags from $2 a bag tag to $3 a bag tag, which is a recommendation from the Regional Waste Management Working Group, which South Glengarry is a part of. Moving to the big ticket item. And of course, recycling is moving to producer responsibility, January 1, 2025. And we will be meeting actually with SDNG tomorrow to finalize communications based on the next staff report. So that is very exciting. But for not household hazardous waste, for bulky items, we've put together three options. And we did speak to our waste contractor, because that was one request from council, was to find out what do our contractors think we could do to improve our current model. And the very first line of their response was, it will not continue to work unless you change it, and do far more communications outward, maintain a strict list of things to be picked up. And I have 4 bullets in my report that kind of summarize their thoughts. But it was, if we continue to offer this as a single week, we need to be more firm with our residents on what we collect. And we do have a list. The list has been the list for many years. I haven't changed it administratively since I've arrived. And it really and it's attached to somewhere in the staff report, the bulky items. So fridges, couches, large items that you can't put into your vehicle. And again, that was their observation, being the people collecting waste. So our first option is continue on, single week contracted, but increase our communications, and the cost remains the same, and we bump up our advertising budget for the year to make sure that everybody understands what will be picked up and what they should be bringing to our landfills with their 2 free dump days that council brought in, I believe in 2022 or 2023, but the intent of those 2 free dump days is to allow residents to bring things to the landfills outside of our heavy pickup week and at their leisure on a Thursday or a Saturday. The second option is a scheduled service at a near cost recovery basis. When we looked at this, we tried to keep it within our own municipal staffing. When we go out for contracts for this type of work, the costs seem to balloon, but we thought that we'd try it in-house, and if it became unmanageable, we may be able to reach out to local contractors on a by-hour basis. So if somebody had oh my gosh, a pickup thing, this is not the right word, I'm so sorry, and a truck that they could run around if our staff is unavailable, then that would be better than having a flat fee across the year. We are proposing a zoned pickup, so each zone would have 2 pickups a year. We could increase that, but it gets a little challenging if we're having people running around every Friday of the year to do this. So this is one Friday a month for the spring, summer, and fall months. We excluded winter from these months just because of challenges with our winter operations and plows. And we are hoping that if it's during the summer months and nice months, and we could perhaps, I know we don't want scavengers, but it could be an opportunity for people to know that this is a Friday, and maybe if they put their thing out the Friday before, it'll get picked up and they won't have to pay the township to come and do it. We looked at a few options for how we could, or what fees we could charge. And the council had requested on something else that we consider the City of Cornwall's fees, so we took that approach here, and that is attached to the staff report as one of the attachments. The City of Cornwall is a smaller geographic area, we're much larger, so we thought that items 1 through 3 could be a flat fee and then a per item cost after that, just to recover some of our fuel costs since it is a bit more. Our third option is just, we threw it in, no curbside option, so I'm expecting that's going to be a resounding no, but thought it or maybe not, I'm not sure, but I thought we should throw that as an option. So again, the 3 options for bulky pickup is continue with the single week, increase our communications, or schedule the scheduled service at a near cost recovery basis. I wrote near cost recovery because we really don't know. I expect it's going to be operating at a loss, but some cost recovery is always quite nice. And the third one being no curbside option.
Thank you. And I was thinking, as you said, the snow plows, if you think our snow can break your mailbox, you should see a flying couch. That would be if it was winter months. So that's good good thinking on that one. I believe this came mainly, I believe at one point, maintain was our previous discussion, and we'll come back to you in a second. But Deputy Mayor Lang kind of brought forth the idea, and I kind of quietly supported the no curbside option. Maybe opinions have changed, and then Councillor Jaworski, I think, was half and half. So we'll just start with those who originally, because that was our debate, and you can change your mind, of course. I'm not. I think the two of you said maintain it. Have your opinions changed on that matter, or do you want any further information from Ms. McDonald? Please do, Councillor McDonnell.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I guess before we get into bulky pickup, I just wanted to say, just along the lines of the, I forget what the wording was, the non-recognized, or maybe I'm on one earlier. I'm on the wrong report, anyways. But I'm still thinking along the lines of a bulky pickup week. I agree with Deputy Mayor Lang. When it's done wrong or it's not picked up or whatever the case may be, it's very frustrating on our side. I know Deputy Mayor Lang had a few threats of bulky waste delivered to his place, and I think he did end up picking it up anyways, but I think it's something that people have come to recognize. My only fear with I know you call it a curbside pickup for those that, if there's a large bulky item that somebody wants picked up, they're going to anticipate, I would assume, out of just the premise of it, that we're going to have 2 people show up and pull it out of their house, and that'll be your first bit of headaches and phone calls that we're all going to get after that I'm paying for a service. I thought you were going to take it out of the house, but I mean, I guess that'll be a growing pain, but I'm maybe a creature of habit, and I like what we're doing now, so I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bougie?
Through Mr. Mayor, no, I would agree. I feel like the township residents have been accustomed to this kind of service, and everyone knows it comes up. It's like, all right, big spring cleanup. It goes out for the week. Some local residents go around, pick up the steel they want. So a lot of it gets recycled one way or the other, and it's less on us for tonnage and our contractor that goes out to collect it. So I feel like it is kind of the best option. And it really, as for the $5,000 for increased communications, I don't even know if we need to do that, really. We have it in our calendars. We have it on our social media. I mean, maybe Ms. McDonald would like to do some YouTube videos. Maybe that would go somewhere and get our viewership up to show what is included and what's not to be added to it. But really, I feel like there's lots of communication out there, and people have been accustomed to this service. So.
Thank you. And if you're watching online and you want to see what is picked up, it's page 39 of 98 on our agenda. Deputy Mayor Lang?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. And appreciate the opinions across the room, but I haven't changed mine. I know it was a disaster last year. And I don't think people understand when it's this, they just think it's a day that they can put out whatever doesn't fit in a garbage bag, but it's not that. If it can fit in your car or your trunk, then you're supposed to take it to the dump yourself. We give you 2 free days. So I don't feel like we're letting our residents down. We're letting them go to the dump twice, take a pickup load of large items to the dump for free twice a year on their own schedule. Like for me, the schedule in May is usually our busiest month. It's not a great time for us to go around and gather up stuff and get it out because we're trying to plant. So I think we're looking after residents just by allowing them to go to the dump free twice during the year. And I know there's some people say, oh, I don't have a pickup truck. But you know somebody with a pickup truck. You have a friend, or you have son, or somebody that has a pickup, or you could hire one if you needed to. Like our residents aren't helpless. I think they can do it. Like they can look after this. They like the idea that they just throw it out in the front yard and it disappears. But at $17,000, plus we're going to have to spend $5,000. We definitely need to do some communication if we keep this, because it didn't work last year. I picked up numerous things for people and disposed of it myself just because I was sick of them phoning and being cross at me. And I know they put it out at the right time. It just didn't get picked up for one reason or another. So I'm keeping where I am. I think we do provide a service for our residents by allowing them to go free. And I think it would save us the $17,000 plus 5. So, $20,000. Times are tight.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Jaworski?
Sure. Thank you through you, Mayor McDonald. Thank you, Ms. McDonald, for putting this together. I think this was really helpful to put some, these options, flesh them out, and bring them to us. I am partial to the first option, but I have a couple questions. And maybe I'm getting confused with some other number, but that $17,000 plus HST, is that consistent with previous years? Is that a fixed amount, or is it very much they charge in the end, like how many loads, et cetera, that it took them? So I was wondering if you could answer that first, please.
Excellent question, and through you, Mr. Mayor. The 17,000 number is out of date. Now that you've said it out loud, the contract in year 1 is 17,000, and it's subject to CPI or Consumer Price Index increase every year. So it will be maybe 18,000 by now. But it is a fixed fee plus a fuel adjustment on top of that. So the fuel adjustment could be anywhere from 2,500 to 3,000, depending on where we are.
So, I do think that the bulky pickup week does provide sort of a focal point for large item recycling, large resharing of items. I feel like there's a certain rhythm to it, but I do think we could do a much better job of it. Like, I certainly would want there to be increased communications. I'm in favor of the idea of labeling items that are not picked up so that there's a lot more clarity on what is and what isn't, and that it is very much not a day just to throw out the stuff that didn't fit in the past. I mean, I'm sure administration doesn't want to doesn't want to do multiple things at once. And if you were to go with this, like if council were to go with number 1, but you still had the scheduled pickup in the past as a pilot, would you then want to would you think that it would make sense then to eliminate that altogether?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just to make sure I understand the question, it's would we continue to run the pilot in tandem with the week like we did this year? We didn't, we could. We didn't have great uptake until near the end of our pilot because everyone put their stuff out in May. So we found in the fall we were starting to get a few more people, but the summer was pretty quiet and we were able to handle it with students. So it was very poorly, for the amount of effort that went into putting it on, it wasn't horribly well taken up. But we did find that people were they really understood that they had to get out to the curb because they do have to call at some point to speak to somebody to sign up. Like they register online and then we call them and make sure they understand the terms of the program, and then they were very okay with bringing stuff to the curb. And the folks that couldn't, they just asked their neighbors. So it seemed to be okay.
And then the last point, just on the white items and like freezers and refrigerators that are meant to be decommissioned. There's the fact that we require that in any of these processes. I understand why we require it or why it's meant to happen, but I feel like it's something that is not necessarily like, because we don't take them, then people aren't doing that, and where it does actually go is not doing that at all. So I'm not sure if we're driving behavior, and I forget what you said in terms of what the cost was of that decommissioning. Like, I wonder if that's one of those costs that in the end we're driving a behavior for a minimal cost that is really not one that we want to be encouraging. So that's just something, I mean, irrespective of these other options, something to consider that I think for those kind of smaller costs, to maybe we should think about absorbing some of those. Thank you.
Okay, seeing that seems we have a consensus to go with option number 1, which is kind of maintenance plus, or like current service level, and then plus communications are, okay, yes, so that, we're choosing option number 1 here. Eileen, Deputy Mayor Lang's way, just that I can put my sense in. Thank you for giving it an opportunity. I do appreciate it. So no further comments. Moved by Councillor Bougee, seconded by Councillor Jaworski. Be it resolved that staff report 2024-121 be received, and that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of South Glengarry approve the 2025 service levels for solid waste management services as outlined in Appendix 1 of Staff Report 2024-124, including the following service levels for curbside bulky item pickup. Option 1, which is single week contracted with increased communications. All those in favor? Gary. Moving to item 7B, non-eligible sources, blue box depot option. Ms. McDonald. So moved by Councillor McDonnell, seconded by Councillor Bougee. Be it resolved that staff report 2024-122 be received, and that, and this is another option, select one of option 1, the Township of South Glengarry discontinue blue box services for non-eligible sources at the curbside blue box program transitions, as the curbside blue box program transitions to extended producer responsibility effective January 1st, 2025, and this is recommended. Or option 2, administration be directed to include $15,000 in the 2025 operations budget for non-eligible blue box depot services, and that's not recommended. Ms. McDonald.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor, this was also a discussion on September 3rd when Township Council opted to discontinue curbside collection from non-eligible sources. Non-eligible sources being the IC&I sector, so the institutional, commercial, and industrial sector within South Glengarry. It's a small part, a very, very small part, likely less than 1% of the blue box that we had picked up curbside. And council had asked that we look at a depot model, so we did. It's not a huge cost. It's about $15,000 or less during the year. However, administration is still recommending to just get out of the business of offering blue box services to the IC&I sector, simply because it aligns with the direction that the province is pushing us in, not pushing us, but has put us in. And there is a regulation, which is in my previous report, that stipulates that the IC&I sector should be responsible for their own waste management on their own sites. Part of the challenges with this depot model, like take away the cost and whatnot, is finding out who is currently benefiting from curbside collection within the IC&I sector. So we would need to do that in short order. So the next 2 weeks would be a flurry of communications out, finding out who is currently receiving that services, because I don't believe it was the intent of council to expand our services, simply to provide this service to the folks, to the businesses that are currently enjoying it. And I do not honestly know what the uptake would be if they need to drive their blue box materials to one of our landfills. So we're recommending to not provide a depot model, but are happy to do it if that is what council wishes.
And thank you for this. I believe it was Councillor McDonnell brought this as a suggestion, so we'll go to Councillor McDonnell.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for bringing this back, Ms. McDonald. I guess the driver behind discussing this in the first place was just, it's good not to send people backwards as far as recycling is concerned. You want to encourage it as we go on, because you hate to see it just wind up in the landfill when it can be diverted, as we saw earlier this evening. The more that goes in, the quicker, the more it costs us in the long run. So if we can extend those lives, it's better. I would put it as a simple suggestion that you'd recommend, or you'd mentioned in the report that you were going to be reaching out to those that we figure are I guess won't be receiving the service through circular materials. And after our last council meeting, I can't remember if it was during or if it was perhaps after, and kind of a post-council amble, that most of these example institutions, as far as churches, if you look across the municipality, a lot of them have a dwelling attached to them that will still remain or still benefit from that curbside. And who's to say where the recycling maybe came from? It'll probably go out to the with the house's garbage, or parishioners with some of them that maybe don't have a house attached to them. Probably somebody be willing to take it home and throw it out at home as well. But it's I guess I'd be interested in doing it maybe on a short-term basis. But I would recommend maybe when you do that outreach, if it's a mailer or something along those lines, just put across the bottom that you're no longer going to be receiving it. If you feel you would be interested in dropping it off, and I would be specific, you're going to have to drive it Thursday or Saturday to our landfill site. We're willing to give that option, but we're only going to do it if there's a decent amount of uptake. I'd be fine doing it. I wouldn't do it forever, but I think it just, I'm assuming probably some of it's going to be maybe the odd business that's exempt or something like that was maybe putting the offices recycling out, but just to save it from being put out and missed 1 week and then thrown in the dumpster that same day. So just something along those lines. I don't know if there's interest from the rest of council, but if not, it's fine. So thank you.
All right, thank you for that. Deputy Mayor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. I agree with Councillor McDonnell. I think most people are going to, because there's no limit to the recycling amount that they can have at their residence, so most people are going to figure out a way to get it to a residence one way or the other. And a little variance from what Councillor McDonnell had said, I'm thinking instead of us going through the time and effort and trying to reach out and locate all these people and figure, and we're going to miss some for sure, is we just cancel it, see what happens. If there is a bunch of people get a hold of us and say, look, we need to, to figure out something, so we can always change our mind, and we can always do. I don't think there's going to be much. I think people are going to figure this out on their own, and that's what the province has put into place anyway. So my thought would be to just cancel it for now, and if people reach out and we find there's a significant number of people, then we say, okay, we'll talk about providing a service for them.
Councillor McDonnell?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I might have misread something here. Are you intending on sending a correspondence out regardless, or only if we offer this program? If you are regardless, then I would put it in. If not, I wouldn't go searching and spending too much time.
That's a really good question. So through you, Mr. Mayor, we will be sending out a mailer to all residents about the residential changes. There's a flyer put out by Circular Materials, but to the ICNI sector, the Regional Waste Management Committee, together with SDNG, has prepared a communications for the ICNI sector, so they will receive a common mail out ASAP. So regardless of the decision tonight, we're going to direct mail everyone in VADM, is that how we get, that we know of with an ICNI zoning?
Are you satisfied with that? Okay. And VADM's our financial software for those who are, yeah. Councillor Jaworski?
Thank you, through you, Mayor McDonald. Thank you, Ms. McDonald, for this. My two questions. If I understand correctly, like for Circular Materials, they were provided with an address, like a listing of all the locations today that are receiving recycling. And so in some cases where it's like a home business or it's nebulous, whether it was a commercial, so there might be some of ICNIs that are inadvertently on that list, or I'm suspecting. So I'm going to take from your small nod that I'm probably right, which is okay. So the second question is just like practically speaking, because if I understand correctly, the municipality is also ineligible, right? So practically speaking, what does the municipality plan on doing with our recycling? I mean, we don't have like the best setup to start with, so I'm just kind of curious, do we have a plan at this point? How we plan on managing our own?
Two other great questions. So through you, Mr. Mayor, definitely there are some addresses for the first question that would likely continue to be picked up because they would be on a residential. I have no idea how it will all roll out, but I expect that unless it really looks like ICNI, like if it's a ton of cardboard stuck together that would scream commercial, that it will likely get picked up, or unless it's in front of something that is very, and even if it screams, even if it's in front of a commercial and there's residential on top, if it's not screaming like commercial blue box, I expect it will picked up, but we will see. The second question was, what is the municipality going to do? So we will likely get a bin and put it in and have our own forces drop our recycling in and have it taken away when the bin is full. So pretty similar to this depot. Yeah.
So I might suggest that we piggyback on that approach somehow for those, situations that they reach out and they need a solution, because if we're doing it anyways, which I hope we are, that let's leverage that.
And a good case study for whether they pick it up would be like Henderson's, right? Because there's two residents above there. I don't believe Henderson's uses our recycling anyway, but if they're not getting picked up, that'd be one of those ones to kind of like a first warning that some things are being missed. And to piggyback on Councillor Jaworski's thing, and a blue box in every facility we have can also help for this, and glasses so we can drink our water. Just to be, because conservation is a behavior, and we've got to start with ourselves. So then it looks like we're choosing option one. I'll read it again, unless there was further discussion around the table. Moved by Councillor McDonnell, seconded by Councillor Bougie. Be it resolved that Staff Report 2024-122 be received, and that option one, the Township of South Glengarry discontinue blue box services for non-eligible sources as the curbside blue box program transitions to extended producer responsibility effective January 1st, 2025. All those in favor? Carried. We will be moving to bylaws. 8A, comprehensive fee bylaw, third and final reading. Moved by Deputy Mayor Lang, seconded by Councillor Jaworski. Be it resolved that Staff Report 2024-123 be received, and that Bylaw 69-2024, being a bylaw to establish fees and charges to be collected in the Township of South Glengarry, be read a third and final time, passed, signed, and sealed in open council this 4th day of November 2024. Ms. MacDonald, Ms. Servage, Ms. Campo, Fire Chief Dave, Mrs. McDonald, the whole crew.
Good evening, and through you, Mr. Mayor. So I have invited Ms. Servage up here, Ms. Harbers, pardon me, to assist, as she has received quite a few of the questions on this bylaw to date. I'd like to thank council for all their comments and feedback we received when we brought it to our last meeting. And we've obviously been receiving other feedback from the community. As we noted in our previous meeting, this bylaw was overdue for us to bring forward, and many of our rates haven't moved in quite some time. So we thank you for getting it to this stage, and thank you.
I imagine there will be some discussion around the table for this one. So were there any comments from around the council? We'll start with Deputy Mayor Lang, and I saw Councillor Jaworski's hand go up, and then if there's interest on the other side of the table, we'll go westward.
I thought everybody's hand would be up and I'd be able to go last, but anyway. Quite a bit of the correspondence that I think most of us received was around the Optimus Club. They had been getting a very, very discounted rate of $31 and something, I think, plus HST for ICE rentals. And I think they're finding a little bit of sticker shock when we're suggesting to go up to basically the school rate at $90. Just so for everybody's knowledge, that wouldn't take effect this current ice season. It would be starting next September, I believe. Am I correct with that? Yes. I've been thinking about it quite a bit. I think the Optimus Club is quite a good organization. They do a lot of good in the community, and I think it's great that they're encouraging kids to get out and skate. So I think it is tough to see your rates go up that much. So I'm going to throw out a proposal that likely would have to be an amendment to this or a line addition to put the Optimus Club rate back in, but at $60. I think like $31 was ridiculously low. I know it's going to sound like they're going up 100% still, but it was a ridiculously low offer, and I don't know if I'll get support around the table, but this is my thought. Go up to $60 for the Optimus Club, but I would like to suggest to the Optimus Club, and I'm pretty sure some of them will be listening tonight, that when they do these rentals, maybe give us a little bit of acknowledgement, because you've been doing this at $31, but the township's been subsidizing to the tune of, $150 to $170 for that same rental, because we know that the actual costs are quite a bit higher than what some of our fees are. So maybe give us a little bit of the credit as well, that you're renting this ice for the kids, but it's being subsidized by the Optimus Club as well as the township. But that's my thought anyway. I just want them to to realize that we have been giving a very, very discounted rate. We can't leave it at $31 in my mind, but I could see us going somewhere in between. So I'm going to throw out the $60. See if there's any support around the table.
So Councillor Jaworski, if you'd like to proceed, you can either say your support. If you had another opinion as well, you can add it.
Thank you, through you, Mayor McDonald, and thank you to staff for all the work on this, and I know all the outreach and discussion you've had with community groups and members of the public. First of all, I'd like to thank you very much for the rough financial estimates that you provided in terms of the cost of running, like our major recreation facilities. And that's, definitely informed sort of, again, like a very rough estimate that probably if we wanted these places, recreation, to be break even, we'd probably have to double the rates, the historical rates to cover their costs. But, and I was, and I guess I should just say personal biases. I was actually surprised. I actually thought we were subsidizing them more. I actually thought our cost to operate the facilities was higher than what actually came in. So it's always good to have your biases checked with some more detail. So so to that point, I mean, as I mentioned the first time around, what the Optimus Club was doing with the schools was very close to my heart, and I definitely am in favor of what Deputy Mayor Lang has proposed, and I'd probably be willing to even subsidize it more, but I think it's a fair place to start. And I mean, again, just for the benefit of maybe those who haven't gone to watch or haven't been there to help tie skates on the day when the Optimus Club is doing these sessions with the schools, there's a lot of kids there who you can clearly this is one of the few chances they ever get to go on the ice. There, you know, there's some kids who are part of the different clubs that get on the ice regularly, but there's quite a few that this is really a very big treat for them, and oftentimes that means these are either families that have a lot of pressures on them that kids can't participate in these activities, or they just don't have the money to be able to afford it. So. And it does meet a different demographic than those kids who have families who can get them to public skating or ice times over the weekend. So I think it's definitely well worth to keep going. And I agree with Deputy Mayor Lang that it's at those kind of levels that really is sort of a joint effort between the township and the Optimist Club to be offering that time. And so I think that makes sense for that. But now that we have that information to be able to talk about how much the township is subsidizing, at least at a high level, I think, we wouldn't even be able to say that before. So it's great to have that knowledge. So I'll limit my comment just to that specific item in case there's other items to discuss.
Councillor McDonnell.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll agree with Deputy Mayor Lang as well. I'm fine at $60 as well. I think it's fair. It helps cover a good part of the staffing just to do that ice. I mean, $30 before probably wasn't covering our Zamboni driver for the hour. It's sad but true. The constraints we see as far as fiscal on this building as well, and I know we want to subsidize it as best we can, and I think the entire community believes in it. At the end of the day, too, you have to look back to our last council meeting. I wasn't here to support it as well as the rest of you, but we just made a financial commitment to the provincial government that if they gave us money, we're talking about putting $2 million into this building. We can't keep it free forever, so I'll agree that we create another line for the Optimist Club, but as we go forward in years to come, it's not getting any cheaper these days. So, thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Bougie.
Thank you, through Mr. Mayor. I do agree with Deputy Mayor Lang as well. I mean, $31 was very, very cheap for that group, and I mean it is a partnership, like you said. But I guess with all of these rates, and as we've seen since 2015, these rates have kind of been the same. So I guess with this tonight and passing of this, I feel like, I don't know if the plan is to revisit this every year, or are we going to put in some kind of increases yearly moving forward, or are we just going to wait and see what's going to happen after? Because it's been 9 years since the increase and we're way behind, and so I don't know what the plan is there, but I would like to see kind of some, I guess, yearly increase or revisit it every year to see if we're still satisfied with the costs.
Just to check, it is the intention to come back every year annually, so that it becomes obviously not a 9-year makeup. Okay. Yeah, and then we can apply a rate of inflation, or if it needs to be more, like who knows, maybe the Optimist Club in 2026, 27 will be $70. Like maybe we'll move them slowly, but I see consensus for $60 for that particular item. Councillor Jaworski wanted to go a little lower, but it seems like there's three. So at 60, I think that is fair. And just for the population watching, that is above what the inflation cost was. So they are adding a little bit more to the bottom line that way. So $60 for that particular item. I believe we had some conversation about the Martintown Good Timers too. I don't know if we wish to carry on with that one, or if there was any opinions around the table. I know it's somewhat contentious. We talked about $2,000, but we also received a letter from them at one point. Or do we want to re-look at their contract and have a conversation further to that? Because that was their thing. They provided with some information to the public, so that they were willing to sit down and have a conversation about what services look like. And to echo or still, Councillor Jaworski, thank you very much for providing the costs of that hall, because I was not aware that Martintown Community Center cost us, I believe it was anywhere from $50,000 to $70,000 per year, with revenue not matching, and that was considerable. My question to that number would be, is that mostly staff time set up and take down, or is there a considerable capital cost? Like I know that the not ring toss, horseshoe pits went in and such. So is it more capital events to further programming, or would it be salaries in terms of accommodating takedown, opening and closing?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the numbers provided to council were sort of without the capital costs and transfer costs.
Thank you. So that's a pretty, that's more operating costs. So are there any questions? I think we had originally said start at 2,000. I don't know if that will be, I think we had a response to that. Do we wish to stay there? And that is fine. I just want to make sure that we're being public and taking into consideration their comments. Okay, then we won't change that advice or direction to staff, and I think it was $2,000. Were there any further items on this one? I saw infrastructure put in and this was through Deputy Mayor Lang, and just to be sure, a hay wagon and a hydraulic dump trailer. Was that to your satisfaction? Did you find those? That's on page 53 of 98 for those watching at home, because that was a comment you had made.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, yes, it was well addressed. I appreciate staff doing that. It just catches that level of trailer that some of them are quite large, and they could technically be dumping quite a bit more than a 1-ton truck. So, and the other problem I had was that if our rates are not consistent with Cornwall, then we're going to end up with a lot of construction waste coming out of Cornwall, which I worry that maybe we have some already.
Okay, so it looks like the only amendment would be to reinstate the Optimus rate at $60. Can that be like an amendment that we can still pass this, and it can be just an item to add, or what's the best course of action?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. What I'd recommend, I've noted in the minutes that council's directed that the bylaw be amended to add an Optimus Club ice rental rate at $60 per hour. And then in your resolution, after passed, signed, and sealed as amended, if you could add as amended as a friendly amendment, and then the amendment is captured in the minutes.
Councillor Jaworski?
Thank you. Through Mayor McDonald, just a comment, as we move forward, I hope that staff is able to sort of dial in some of the estimates that have been generated for the rec center or the community center, so that I know, speaking for myself, it's not so much about catching up, it's not so much about what's inflation, it's more about what is the level of subsidy that we want to offer. I mean, we have roads that, don't necessarily have very many residents driving on them, but we don't necessarily look at those with the same sort of negative perspective in terms of subsidy. So I think it's more about looking at, I prefer looking at it from that lens, about what it actually costs us to do it. So that when we have the discussions in the future about what is the appropriate rate, that we, that we have those numbers, and also that, for example, we know in September, often even a couple days ago, you couldn't see the ice because it's so steamy, because it's so warm outside. I mean, also having an understanding of what it costs us to run, in September versus April, so that potentially, we can advocate to, maybe have, a better, changes to the ice season, or how things, sort of run in our area of Eastern Ontario, where there's lots of small rinks that are all dealing with these very high costs and impacts of temperature, and climate change, where it's just challenges that, we didn't necessarily have a couple of decades ago. So I just wanted to put a plug again for that. Thanks.
All right, so I will read this because I have to read as amended. So moved by Deputy Mayor Lang, seconded by Councillor Jaworski. Be it resolved that Staff Report 2024-123 be received, and that Bylaw 69-2024, being a bylaw to establish fees and charges to be collected in the Township of South Glengarry, be read a third and final time, passed, signed, and sealed as amended in open council this 4th day of November 2024. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Grants and donation policy, moved by Deputy Mayor Lang, seconded by Councillor McDonnell. Be it resolved that Staff Report 2024-124 be received, and that Bylaw 2024-68, being a bylaw to adopt a community grants and donations policy for the Township of South Glengarry, be read a third and final time, passed, signed, and sealed in open council this 4th day of November 2024. Ms. Campo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. Council received this policy at our last meeting for a first and second reading. Since that time, we've amended the policy to reflect the feedback received by council at our last meeting, and it's before you for a third and final reading this evening. Subject to any questions, that's the bylaw before you tonight.
Are there any questions and comments? All right, all those in favor? Carried. Moving to the procedural bylaw, third and final reading, moved by Councillor Bougie, seconded by Councillor Jaworski. Be it resolved that staff report 2024-125 be received and that bylaw 2024-70, being a bylaw to govern the calling, place, and proceedings of council, be read a third and final time, passed, signed, and sealed in open council this 4th day of November 2024. Ms. Compo?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and again through you. This bylaw is before you for a third and final reading this evening. We've discussed it at our last 2 meetings, so it's been updated to reflect council's feedback at our last meeting, subject to any final revisions or comments. After tonight, it'll be in effect.
So just to be doubly sure after tonight, but our meeting schedule only changes in January. Okay, good, thank you. All those in favor of the motion as read? Carried. Moving to items for consideration, capital budget notes. Ms. McDonald, Mr. McIntosh.
Hello. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council. First of all, I'd like to introduce to council Mr. Kyle McIntosh, who is our technical supervisor. He's been with us for just over a month now, and he'll have opportunities to speak towards council. So I thought I'd start him off with something fun. So a quick note on on this report before I hand it off to Mr. McIntosh. We're looking at the budget number that we proposed for 2025, sorry. We're not asking for that value. This is just a number that we've thrown out because it was a nice, cool million. And to give council an idea of what was proposed for 2025 through our Ontario Structural Inspection Manual 10-year capital plan, and what, if there was $1 million available, administration would recommend doing. And we'll see when we actually get to the budget what that number might be. And I don't want anyone to think that this is the number, because we haven't come together as a senior management team and settled on a number, but it could be more or less.
Okay, thank you. We're just going to replace your microphone so it's not blinking. And please proceed.
So without further ado, Mr. McIntosh.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Bear with me. This is my first time at council, so I hope it goes well. So the first report in front of you is for our 2025 capital structures. We have 68 structures in South Glengarry. In 2023, OSIM's reports were done on inspections were done on all of them. That was presented to council on December 4th. And it indicated the replacement costs for all those structures at $84 million and 27 million approximately over the next 10 years, working out to about 2.7 million a year in replacement costs. Township's current asset management plan carries the same 10-year plan through the OSIM's report with those same highlighted numbers. 2024 capital works that went on this year, substantially completed. We had 2 notable structure rehabilitations at Chapel Road and Second Line in collaboration with the SDNG counties. Were a tremendous help in helping us get those rehabilitated this year. They also assisted us in the Glen Nevis Bridge minor repairs to the joint replacements and some emergency repairs to Cemetery Road in September. One of the structures we didn't get to this year was Third Line Road. Administratively, we pushed it off to 2025 just with time constraints for that report, or for that study. That'll be proceeding in 2025. And we also had the Kinloch Bridge road closure this year. Looking to 2025, we have 5 or 6 structures that are up as part of the OSIMS report, needing either rehabilitation costs or varying studies, totaling at about 1.4 million. The administration our staff has been proposing to undertake 3 of these works next year. St. Raffles Bridge, Third Line, South Service Road, and First Line Road for just a design of the structural replacement in 2025. Rehab and design for St. Raffles and Third Line design would be carried out in 2025 with construction, pending design would take place in 2026. These costs include design and construction kind of costs in there. Depending on design, we could move forward in 2025 with one of them, if so speaks, but those are kind of what our options are for 2025. 2 structures that we identified needing rehabilitations in 2025, but were not included in this are Cashin Road and North Service Road. Those were left out due to low traffic levels and options for detouring should need, not that they need that right now, but if something arose, they could be detoured, but they also are low traffic, low crossings, so they are lower on the priority list. Operationally, for 2025, we will be up again for our biannual OSIMS inspections, so 65 of those structures will be re-inspected again this year. As per OSIMS, 2 closed structures, or 3 enhanced inspections, and 6 peanut line. Thank you.
Thank you. I will just add that the 2 structures, any of the structures for 2025, none of them we have not been notified for any of them that they have severe defects. We're not anticipating, like, if none of this work gets done, all the structures will continue to operate and carry traffic. It's just finding the projects that fit whatever amount of money is available in 2025 to spend on them. So when we were prioritizing, it really was, as Mr. McIntosh said, the lowest traffic volumes went to the bottom of the list, as long as there was a sufficient and really quick detours to not inconvenience residents. I also wanted to notice that moving into 2025, we've been talking with SDG, and you'll notice that's kind of a theme, like we're really trying to collaborate with both SDG and all of our neighboring municipalities. So the Public Works Directors got together last week and talked a little bit about bridges and how we might be able to have a regional approach to doing some of this work. So as Mr. McIntosh said, we did collaborate pretty heavily with SDG. They provided our construction administration services for Chapel Road and Second Line Road Bridge. And I can tell you that we had a cost savings of, I don't know how to say it, like it's a third less, no, it cost us a third to use SDG for those services as it did with consultants. Is that the appropriate, yeah? So like.
So we like save 67% about?
Correct, yes. So looking at that model, that was something that we trailed on behalf of the other municipalities, and it was resounding, for us anyways, a resounding success. So we're looking at ways regionally to package your bridges, to do the same things in the same areas at the same time. You obviously can't do that just off the get-go because we're all over the place in what we're doing, but we are looking next year to maybe do some minor concrete repair jobs together and see if there's any efficiencies there. But things like we did on the Glen Nevis Bridge, our joint replacement, like if we had a massive joint replacement contract across the counties or a rolling schedule of those, because joint replacements are something that come up fairly frequently on OSIMS, that's a way that we can all work together and just get like a pretty good savings on what's considered a pretty small job, because for bridge contractors to get out here for something like that, it's kind of annoying for them. So just as we move forward and we look ahead, like we did see really good cost efficiencies, we received excellent service, and we're going to try and collaborate and just partner with our neighbors as much as we possibly can on these to hopefully find cost savings for South Glengarry and perhaps, you know, move up some of these bridges off the maybe not to the yes list. Thank you.
And I forget, is it 2025 or 2026 is the year that the counties are coming to South Glengarry to do the roads?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it's 2025, and if I recall from their map, it's the South Branch Road, 17 from Williamstown North, and 26 North Lancaster down to South Service. Thank you.
All right, because that was another example of mobilization, as you're like talking, like mobilize once, do it in one place instead of moving across, because the counties previously had them all. They wanted to kind of touch different municipalities at the same time, and I believe it was, yeah, Mr. Grant, so Dana Grant at the counties proposed through Ben to focus in different areas, and there was cost savings there. Please do.
Thank you for letting me speak again. On that, we are looking and developing our roads capital plan to find efficiencies there too. So is there any opportunities, specifically if the counties is like in an area, for us to do a small work off their contract? So that's part of what we're looking at. If they're already here and we need something small that would cost us an extraordinary amount of money, maybe their contractor will just like do it for their unit rates that they've received. Thank you.
All right, thank you for looking into those. Any questions or comments about the capital plan? I guess what we may be seeing, partially depending on funding and cross-department priorities. Deputy Mayor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. Thanks for the presentation. Good job, Kyle. No problems. And I'm sure you're doing this, but I just want to make note, like, the recommended spending is 2.7 million a year, and we obviously cannot do that. There's no way we can do that. Not even in the, mid-future, I don't think we can do that. So, and I'm sure you are doing, but hopefully you can come up with some kind of a plan that shows what we can do and to keep everything running. Like, we have to find a way to stretch some of these structures a little longer than what the experts are saying they should be, because we can't change them all. So appreciate it. Thank you.
And just a slight tangent would be the roads and the rationalization studies. They're somewhat forthcoming, I would hope. I'm just looking for like maybe hold you accountable a little bit with that one, because that's something we were looking for. So we'll put that on the to-do list. Yeah, or to do as soon as possible, because that kind of hints towards that. Like we might have some tough decisions, and it's best to have them with it. I understand there's a lot of work, but keeping an eye out for that one. All right, thank you very much for that. We'll go to resolution, establishment of an Ontario Rural Road Safety Program. I believe this one was moved by Councillor Jaworski last week, so we're looking for a seconder. Deputy Mayor Lang. Okay, whereas official statistics from the Government of Ontario confirm that rural roads are inherently more dangerous than other roads, and whereas despite only having 17% of the population, 55% of the road fatalities occur on rural roads, and whereas preventing crashes reduces the burden on Ontario's already strained rural healthcare system, and whereas roadway collisions and associated lawsuits are significant factors in runaway municipal insurance premiums, preventing crashes can have a significant impact in improving municipal risk profiles. Therefore, be it resolved that the Township of South Glengarry requests the Government of Ontario take action to implement the Rural Road Safety Program that Good Roads has committed to lead. It will allow Ontario's rural municipalities to make the critical investments needed to reduce the high number of people being killed and seriously injured on Ontario's rural roads. And furthermore, that a copy of the resolution be forwarded to Premier Doug Ford, the Minister of Transportation, the Minister of Infrastructure, the Minister of Agriculture, the Minister of Rural Affairs, the Associate Minister of Emergency Preparedness and Response, the Minister of Health, Good Roads, and the Association of Municipalities of Ontario. Did you want to speak more to it, or just all those in favor? Carried. So the consent agenda, item 10D, was pulled by Councillor Bougie. Letter, Ontario Deposit Return Program, Bradford West Gwimelberry. Councillor Bougie.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to see if council had appetite in supporting this letter here by Mayor James LeLuc from town of Bradford, basically saying that the deposit return program for recycling of alcoholic beverages result in removal of 204,000 tons of greenhouse gas emissions. So they're looking at putting that same deposit on non-alcoholic beverage containers. I know in some western provinces they do it, and some Atlantic provinces they do it. So I don't know why Ontario is not, but I feel like it would be a worthwhile thing to do, and it would incentivize some people maybe to pick up those pop cans or bottles that are on the side of the road instead of leaving them, so.
All right, so yeah, Councilor Jaworski will bring it back for next meeting for motion, for resolution. Yes, items for consideration, so for a resolution. Yeah. I will say as a younger lad, I did pick up cans on the side of the road, bottles, no surprise there, and sometimes I would not pick up the Coca-Colas. So I think that would incentivize a young McDonald. Now I pick them all up and put them in recycling. But I'm not as hard done by either, so I guess I don't pick up as much. Okay, never mind, rambling. All right, consent agenda. Moved by Councillor Jaworski, seconded by Deputy Mayor Lang. Be it resolved that Council accepts the items listed on the consent agenda. All those in favor? Carried. We will be convening to closed session. Moved by Deputy Mayor Lang, seconded by Councillor Jaworski. Be it resolved that Council convene to closed session at 8:50 p.m. to discuss the following items under Section 239(2) of the Municipal Act, SO 2001-2. A meeting or part of a meeting may be closed to the public if the subject matter being considered is personal matters about an identifiable individual. All those in favor? Carried. Will now goes to closed. We'll come out without reporting after we're done. Hello and welcome back to our meeting. We're coming out of closed session, moved by Councillor McDonnell, seconded by Councillor Bougie. Be it resolved that council rise and reconvene into open session at 9:39 p.m. without reporting. All those in favor? Carried. Confirming bylaw, moved by Councillor McDonnell, seconded by Councillor Jaworski. Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-72, being a bylaw to adopt, confirm, and ratify matters dealt with by resolution, be read a first, second, and third time passed, signed, and sealed in open council this 4th day of November 2024. All those in favor? Carried. Adjournment. Yeah, I'll get slightly political, and I hope that November tomorrow becomes Rovember. Moved by Councillor Bougie, seconded by Councillor McDonnell. Be it resolved that Council of the Township of South Glengarry adjourn to the call of the chair at 9:40 p.m. All those in favor? Carried. Please encourage your American cousins, friends, family to get out and vote.